fights with passion, and he inspires.
Are you ready for a war?
All right, welcome back to From 8 Arbitration, the Tuesday edition. I was supposed to do one yesterday. I did not think that through because I did not get home till about 8 o'clock last night. I can honestly say yesterday was the busiest day for me probably in the last 5 years. We got absolutely crushed with mail. I mean crushed. And so, yeah, I didn't get home till about 8. And I don't know if y'all have done this. I'm sure you have. But it was so bad. I came in, went straight to bed. I just walked in the door, straight back to the bedroom, straight into bed, went to sleep. I mean, it whipped my ass yesterday. And so today was not near as bad. Today it was, of course, parcels are coming. We're still getting killed with flats. I don't know about y'all, but yeah, yesterday was tough, man. I'm coming home thinking, shit, I'm old. But yeah, and I love December. This is my time of year. It's my favorite time. I love Christmas. I love the busyness of it. I love going to malls and it being busy. Christmas music. I love the post office. I love walking in and there's, 20 gaylords of parcels there. But, man, yesterday it whipped my ass, man. So, no episode yesterday. I apologize. I've got some great news for you. Great news. Sunday, the man, the myth, the legend is going to be back. Mr. Jason Leith, JB. He's going to be back Sunday. Now, my episode today is going to be very brief because I was going to do what he's going to do Sunday. And it's something that he came up with, and I want y'all to listen to this, okay? It's very important what he's going to talk about, and it's management falsifying our parcel numbers. And he caught them only like JB can. He's advanced when it comes to that stuff. But have a pen and paper ready, okay? Because he's going to go over some things and tell you about this meeting he had with management where he caught them stealing parcels from us off the pass machine. And so, yeah, Sunday, the man's back, JB. Now, he's been gone because his son plays baseball year-round and he coaches. And so I was not going to bother him with that. But so we still talk just about every day. But when he was telling me that, I said, brother, I've got to do that. I've got to do that. It's so funny. This is funny, but he was telling me about it. I said, hey, I've got to do an episode on that. So send me what you got. And so he sends me all this stuff, and we're going over it. And so I was like, okay, now what is this? Now this is, this report, and this is this report, and this is what you do. I said, okay, so this goes here, and this. He's like, why don't you just let me do it? So, He could tell the struggle was real with me because, he's so adept at these reports and everything. He said, why don't you just let me do it? And so I said, baby, you got it. And so he's going to do it Sunday. Well, being he's doing that, it knocked my episode way down because that was going to take most of the time today. But we're going to have a salted peanuts today and a lot of discipline. Have a lot of people sending me discipline that want me to go over it. I'll do that. Also, I'm going to give you an investigative interview, okay? We're going to go over some just cause principles today. A lot of places we go, people will come up and say, hey, man, I'm a brand new shop steward, listen to your podcast, and, the discipline stuff really helps. So send me discipline, I'll go over it, all right? So we got some. All of them are ridiculous, especially one that's going to piss you off. Got some screenshots we're going to go over. But yeah, it was a tough day yesterday, man, and it was specifically tough because something that happened on my route, and it goes to show who we are as City Letter Carriers, and that's why I love us. I am in love with us, the City Letter Carrier Light Blue. That's the reason I have such a passion for us, City Letter Carriers. Those that are out there actually doing the work. And so I was on my route yesterday, and there's this couple that I love, one of my favorite couples. And on my route. And so the guy works from home, extremely professional guy. You know, even at home when he comes to the door, dress pants, dress shirt, you know, really nice looking. And him and his wife are always walking the neighborhood, very cordial. He listens to the podcast, and so he'll talk to me about it. And he came to the door yesterday, and you could tell that he was not right. And so he came out and shut the door behind him, which he never does. And I said, "Hey, man, I've been missing y'all. Everything okay?" "No, it's not." And his wife got some bad news from the doctor, and you could tell that it was really, really weighing on him. Really weighing on him. And so we talked for a little bit, you know, right there on the porch about it, and said that she's got some results, test results they're waiting on. And I told him that I'd be praying for both of them. And, you know, you could tell that this guy was really going through it, you know, and just confiding in me that. And a very special couple to me. I mean, they've always been so kind to me when I go deliver their mail and everything. Just walking around the neighborhood, they'll stop, talk to me. And, you know, he'll come out and talk to me all the time. A very professional guy, does very well. But, you know, when you leave that, you think that's who we are. We're not just people who put mail in a box and parcel on a porch. That's not what we are. We're so much more than that. And so that may be the reason why, one of the reasons why I get so upset with my union for failing us. It's because, you know, the Postal Service doesn't care about us, right? I mean, if we fall out dead in the yard, they don't care. And we've seen that through Brother Gates. You know, but I want my union to love us. I want my union to do better for us and to fight for us. And when you see that they're incapable of doing that, it does upset me and makes me angry. And, you know, I say things, you know, that offend a lot of people, but I love us. I love the City Letter Carrier and what we do. Because like I said, we're so much more than putting a letter in a box or a parcel on a porch, you know. These people are our lives. They're our family and the customers. A couple of weeks ago, I was delivering mail, and I've been on this route that I have now for 25 years, started in 2001. And so I've seen kids born, go off to college, come back and get married. You know, that's who we are. That's what we do. And so this one lady was out front, and I've known them since I've been on the route, 25 years. They've been on there the whole time. And I walk up, and I was like, "Hey, there's my friend. How you doing?" And she turned around, and she was sobbing. And I was like, "Oh, no, what's going on?" And she just looked at me, you know, and was just shaking her head. And I knew then that, you know, her and her husband were getting a divorce. You just knew that, you know. And I said, "I am so sorry." And so she just came over, you know, grabbed me, bawled right there, you know, right there in my chest. And I put my arm around her and I said, "I'm so sorry." And she never said a word. Never said a word. Just cried and cried and cried. And then, you know, she turned around and I told her, I said, "I'll be praying for you, my friend." And she walked in. And then about a week later, she came out and she said, you know, "Here's my friend," you know, and hugged me. And I just said, you know, "I hope everything's going okay." And I said, "Everything's going to be all right." And so that's who we are. You know, it's who we are as City Letter Carriers. And so I do get upset with my union for not loving us and not appreciating us enough to fight for us. And so I say things, you know. And so it was funny. Yesterday, somebody messaged me and they said, "Hey, I was at this ACE training and National put on, and the RAAs and RGAs, they hate you." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "They were all talking about you. They hate you. The RAAs and the RGAs." Now, they work at the business agent's office. I said, "They hate me?" He said, "Yeah, man." He said, they were dogging you up there. I said, "Oh, no." I said, "You know who else hates me? Management. They hate me as well." And so I wish I could make you understand how little I care about motherfuckers who don't wear the uniform, how they feel about me. The only ones I love are the ones in light blue. That's it. A motherfucker that sits behind a desk on either side, I don't give two fucks if you like me or not. And you can spend all your time talking about me. Don't give a fuck about that either. Okay? The only ones I love, the only ones I'm going to fight for, light blue. That's it. That's it. My carriers on the floor. They know. My carriers know. I got them. They know that I'm going to go to fucking bat for them every fucking time. And that's how it is. And so, heard another business agent was in a little meeting, called me a dumbass motherfucker. He said, that guy from Tennessee, he's a dumbass motherfucker. Talking about that I don't take into consideration the Postal Service losing money. That's not my job. My job is not to consider that. Matter of fact, the Postal Reorganization Act 1970 told me I didn't have to. That's the Postal Service's position. So you got business agents that are so up Renfro's ass taking their position that they're broke. Look, that's their argument to make. That's not for me. You know, I'm supposed to show why they're losing money and how they can make more money. And that's my job. But yeah, I had a business agent call me a dumbass motherfucker because I'm not buying the position of the Postal Service. So I'll tell you what, when that motherfucker can do 2 push-ups, he can call me. But yeah, man, I love light blue, baby. I love light blue, and I like fucking with people, but I love light blue with all my heart, and I'm gonna fight to my last fucking breath for them, man. But yeah, just out there doing the thing, man, and life happens for the city letter carrier. Life happens, man. You carry a heavy burden with those people out there because you love those people. They're your family, and so it's tough. It's tough, but that's who we are. And again, we are so much more than putting a letter in a box and a parcel on a porch. We are so much more than that, right? And so I think that, I said this the other day, I think I was on Rick Rock's podcast, that I think you'll see the establishment, the status quo, they're scrambling. They're scrambling right now to find a slate. And they've got 1,000 different groups that they're trying to put together, somebody that will fit, something that some combination of people that makes sense that they can try to sell to the city letter carrier. And they're having a very difficult time. I know Barner put his feelers out. You had another retiree come out, make a podcast, and it's kind of died down a little bit, trying to put his feelers out there. You'll have more that you wouldn't see normally. They're going to come out, put their feelers out there on podcasts, kind of see what the public perception is of them. Because they're scrambling. They are scrambling to find any kind of combination that can beat James Henry. But James Henry's so far ahead, they're having a difficult time finding any kind of combination. And so, desperation makes odd bedfellows. And so you'll never, the beginning of the year, you're going to see some things coming out, trying to put feelers out. That's what's going to happen. But yeah, desperation makes odd bedfellows. So you might see a slate you would have never thought you'd see. People that are kind of behind the scenes, laying low, are going to be forced to come out, because you have ex-president pulling the strings. They're not going to lose the status quo. The good old boys are not going to go down without a fight. It's just inevitable. And they're going to do everything humanly possible to make sure that they stay in power. It's just they're not going to let this band of outlaws come in here, the CLC, and take over. And so they're going to come out swinging, and that's fine because we're going to beat that ass anyway. But I look for that next year, which is just a couple of weeks. Damn. But I look for that. You're going to see some very odd bedfellows coming together because I do know for a fact you got a lot of them scrambling trying to find a combination that'll make sense, and it ain't going to happen. A lot of business agents probably going to run independent. They're not going to say they're going to be with the CLC because, past presidents and the current president will frown on that. And they're all about perception. And most of them are not about the city letter care. And that's just the way it is, okay? And so when I tell you I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about me that's not in light blue, that's what I'm talking about. If you sit behind a desk for a living, I don't give a fuck what you think about me because you work for me. And I pay your due, my dues pay your salary. And so I don't give a shit what anybody thinks about me that doesn't deliver mail, right? And I deliver mail full fucking time. 6 days a week. I'm on the ODL 6 days a week. And yesterday was my day off. Like I said, got home right after 8, straight in the sack. But I love you, light blue, with all my heart. I love you. And we will do this together, okay? We're a special group, man. We are a special group. We are family. And you'll have those that will try to tear this family up. It will not happen. It will not happen. I've said it over and over again. They have no idea what's coming next year. No idea what's coming. And but like I told my district manager that time, I can show you better than I can tell you. And next year we're going to show them, right? I can tell you all day long. We're going to show you next year. And so let's get to these screenshots. And I'm just going to, just some things that have come up recently. And I'm going to show you what we're up against, okay? And then I'm going to give you an investigative interview. All right? We're going to go over some discipline. And then we're going to call it a day. Like I said, JB's going to be on Sunday. I will not have one the next week because that's Christmas week. And Sunday is the only time I can go shopping. Okay, because I get home so late during the week, I can't go shopping. So that next Sunday, I will not have an episode. Okay, that'll be Sunday week. The 28th, I'll be back. Okay, we'll have one on the 28th, but I will not have an episode. I think it's the 21st, maybe, or the 20th. I can't remember. But anyway, it's that JB will be on Sunday. That next Sunday, I will not have one, okay, because that's Christmas. But anyway, some screenshots. Just to show you what we're up against, okay? Just to show you what we're up against. Some crazy stuff. Let me give a shout out. I've got one shout out, and then we'll get into these screenshots. Shout out to Brian Barnes, Branch 234 president. He is killing it for his membership. I'm always going to give a shout out like that. Any president that's killing it for his members, because you don't realize how rare that is now. I get more complaints about presidents who refuse to fight than anything. Had one individual saying that he contacted his president, wasn't going to fight, contacted the business agent's office in anonymity, and then the business agent snitched on him. And so said that the vice president of this branch called, getting in his ass. The president that calls, getting in his ass. And so that's what we're up against. I come to my president. Will you fight for me? No. Go to the business agent. You get snitched on. And so that's kind of the environment we're in. But I'll give this again. Shout out to Brian Barnes, Branch 234 president. He is killing it for his membership. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Mr. Barnes, thank you. You don't know how rare you are. Trust me. You don't know how rare you are with what we're dealing with here nationally. Here's another shout out. I don't think I've done this one yet, but here's another one. Hey, I just wanted to request a shout out to Mr. Walt McGregory. I got on the CLC website and I endorsed it. And not long after, he reached out to show his appreciation and really made me feel like family. And that felt great considering he's in the running to be the NBA for my region. So huge shout out to him. Absolutely. And Walt McGregory will be the next business agent of that region. And you talk about somebody who's a fighter. Walt is an absolute dog. And he is a fighter. And I love that guy. If you sit down and talk to him, you're ready to go punch somebody because that dude is a fighter. And so Walt will win that region, and he will definitely be the next MBA for that region that he's running in. And so there's a shout out to Mr. Walt McGregory, my friend. So I'm just going to go over some screenshots just to show y'all what we're up against. Okay? And then we'll talk about one. But just to show y'all what we're up against. Okay? And so I just took these off of social media and some were sent to me. Had a carrier put off the clock today for slipping and falling while delivering mail in the snow. Had a carrier put off the clock for slipping and falling delivering mail in the snow. So here you have a carrier out doing their job in an unsafe environment in the snow. And you slip and fall and he's put off the clock. He's removed from his livelihood. This goes along with what I always say. You don't hate these motherfuckers enough. They hate us. In any setting you're in, you got to understand they hate us. That's how you have to conduct yourself. That's how you have to conduct business. From the suits all the way down to light blue. From the suits at the top all the way down, you've got to understand that they hate and despise us. Anything you sign, realize they hate us. Anything you do, they hate us. Anything you come into an agreement with, they hate us. You got to always operate like that. We can be cordial. We can shake hands. We can sit down and talk. Understand they hate us. Perfect example. Had a carrier put off the clock today for slipping and falling, delivering mail in the snow. That's not going to go anywhere because that's an accident. You have to show that that kind of thing was intentional. And so, yeah, put off his livelihood for slipping and falling. Here's another thing, and I'm going to go over something real quick for you when I go over these, so make sure you got a pen and paper. This is how we're going to beat this stuff. You got these whiteboards up like we've been talking about. Here's one. Listen what this says. Minimum 28 packages per hour. You will be held to this standard. This is on a whiteboard. Minimum 28 packages per hour. You will be held to that standard. I swear to God, this was sent to me on a whiteboard. I'm not making this shit up. Minimum, I'm going to read it again. Minimum 28 packages per hour, you will be held to the standard. Now, where do you think they got some shit like that from? Those memos, 1983, where they have parameters for package delivery and stuff like that. That's opened the door, the Pandora's box, for them to do stupid shit like this, is what that did. Minimum 28 packages per hour. Now, I'm going to file a grievance on that. I'm filing a grievance on that being on that whiteboard. Why? Unlike when you have the hour office time or 45 minutes office time, stuff like that, that's a whole different request. Okay, where are you getting that from? What are you looking at? The M41 tells us about reporting requirements, and we deal with that. We've dealt with that when it first came out. This is different because this is street. Okay, this is the street. So what takes the controlling document on the street when you have things like this? You've got M1769. So when I file a grievance, I'm going to have Article 19 via M1769. Why? Because this is what it states in M1769. Reads in part, no carrier shall be disciplined for failure to meet standards except in cases of unsatisfactory effort, which must be based on documented unacceptable conduct that led to the carrier's failure to meet office standards. Now, we've gone over this a million times, but it's one of the greatest things for us. Then it says this, furthermore, as stated in the agreement for this case, there is no set pace at which a carrier must walk and no street standard for walking. What does that mean? That you cannot say I have a minimum or a maximum time of anything on the street. When you say I have a minimum 28 packages per hour, you are saying that I have a standard. Matter of fact, it says you will be held to the standard. There is no street standard at all. You have a section in the M39 and M41 about delivering parcels. Now, that wouldn't go in here because that's not what we're dealing with. Okay, we're dealing with the street standard. And now if they come out and they say that you're delivering parcels improperly, then that would take effect. And we would go over that, okay, if you know what I'm talking about. I had the knock and drop back then where they're saying, hey, just go up and knock on the door and drop the package. We had that where we brought in those contractual provisions. That's not what we're going to do here. We're going to use this here where we have no street standard, okay? So first one's M1769. There is no set pace at which a carrier must walk and no street standard for walking. You also have M1444. M1444. It states in part, furthermore, the pre-arbitration settlement for this one, dated October 22nd, 1985, provides that there is no set pace at which a carrier must walk and no street standard for walking. So I'm going to use both of those, and I'm going to file a grievance and ask them to rescind that. Wipe that off the board, okay? And I'm going to ask for a cease and desist on doing that, okay? Maybe y'all's business agents have put out something about these whiteboards. I've not seen nobody's messaged me saying, hey, my business agent is attacking these whiteboards. So hopefully they'll do that, get off their ass and do that rather than worrying about me. And so minimum 28 packages per hour. You'll be held to that standard, okay? I have no street standard, right? There is no set pace at which I must walk. No street standard for walking, okay? And so that will deal with that, but that's another thing we're dealing with. I had a supervisor this morning trying to tell me we only have 10 minutes of fixed office time. Just to stand up talk and vehicle check, 5 minutes each. Now remember I had that one last week, there says 3 minutes. 5 minutes each. I told him we have 33 minutes. Is that true anymore, or did dipshit up at the top actually get that reduced to 23? Talking about Renfro. So either way, supervisors will say, lie, con, anything they can. People here don't understand that. Carriers all over my office think I'm a freaking weirdo for fighting with management all the time. And that's what happens. That's what happens. Here's a manager that came out and says, you have 10 minutes of fixed office time. You've got 5 minutes to check your vehicle. And so it goes back to what I say. They will never stop. They're the most dishonest group of individuals you will ever see is postal management. They will never stop lying. They will never stop cheating. They will never stop stealing. It's who they are. It's who they are. They're going to do anything and everything for the numbers. They will lie to you. They'll write things on boards that aren't true, that are not contractual, and it clutters up the grievance process because these motherfuckers will not quit lying. Period. When they say that we only have 10 minutes of fixed office time, that is a lie, and they know it's a lie. There is nothing stating that. When they say we have 5 minutes to check our vehicle, that is a lie. There is nothing stating that. So they will intentionally lie to you all the time. That's all they're good for, is lying. And we've got a union more worried about a podcaster than getting in these motherfuckers' asses. Right? Their days are numbered, though. Their days are numbered, and we'll have people that are going to address these things. But, yeah, 10 minutes of fixed office time. 5 minutes to check your vehicle. Listen to this one. My only female carrier was told by our supervisor, if you're going to keep having periods, you need to get a doctor's note. And that if we hire any more females, we'd have to do that for all of them. Because she wrote it on her 3996 that she would need a little extra time. Is there a grievance here? I would have so many union people in this station if that happened. This dude right here would be put on blast. And I would force it to arbitration. Just like when I was talking about HIP, putting on there an amount that would force it to arbitration. I would force this to arbitration. I would have this supervisor sitting in front of an arbitrator telling him that I told a carrier to get a doctor's note because she was having her periods too many times. I would humiliate a motherfucker that did that to one of my sisters. I would humiliate that son of a bitch. Right? And so, again, We don't hate them enough. My one supervisor got mad at me for filling my gallon water bottle on the clock. They said, fill it at home or not at all. I told him I can't try to fill it at home, but at the end of the day, if it's empty, what do you want me to do? We're working in the heat. How'll I fill it up? That's what we're dealing with. Fill it up at home or not at all. Talking about water bottles. You fill it up at home or not at all, because we had somebody trying to fill up a water bottle on the clock. Like I said, these are just things that come to me that I'm going to share with y'all. But this is stuff that I see every day, 100 times a day. And so when you ask why I'm so bitter, why I'm so angry on here, this is why. Because when you have that love affair, like I've always talked about, that passionate love affair for the seed letter carrier, and you see your people done like this all the time, that's why I get on here and I go fucking crazy. During the week, I don't say 2 cuss words all week long. But I get on here and I do. Why? Because of shit like this that's going on with my family, the people that I love. Here's another one. In my station today marks the official start day of you only have 20 minutes of fixed office time. Now, do you know where they got that from? Renfro. Because he came into an agreement that they would reduce the fixed office time from 33 minutes to 20 minutes in a route adjustment process. It doesn't matter to management what you say. All they see is 20 minutes of fixed office time. They don't see anything else. They don't care about anything else. That's why I told him, quit signing shit. Just stop. Somebody needs to go take all this motherfucker's pens away so that he can't sign anything else. I'm serious when I say this. If you would tell the carriers to collect money, to send him and Barner on a cruise for the next 9-10 months until we can vote them motherfuckers out, I guarantee you you'd get enough money on day one. On day one, to send them on a cruise until we can take over this son of a bitch. They're doing more harm than good. More harm than good. In my station today marks the official start day of you only have 20 minutes of fixed office time. They got that from your president because he put something on a memo. Doesn't matter what it says after that. You can file a grievance. How long is that going to take to go through? They're still going to say you got 20 minutes of fixed office time. You know what's going to happen? They're going to do that. You're going to have a grievance going through, and you're going to have a route adjustment process come in and see that you've been cutting your office time to 20 minutes. You can say, hey, they told us 20 minutes of fixed office time, but, it's 6-day count. Will they even take that into consideration? Management controls the 6-day count. They'll take out routes. You know what that's going to happen? We'll file a grievance on that, and it's going to be another 8, 9, 10 months. So, you got to take the pen out of this motherfucker's hand that keeps doing this shit. Then we voted it down in the T. Don't even get me started. It's Christmas. It's December. It's my time of year to be happy and jolly. And here we go. Here we go. But you got to know. You got to know. When you do shit, you don't write shit like that. You got a TA. A TA, we vote it down, and you force it through, and the arbitrator says, and the contractual things that were discussed are going to be adopted. Even though when he wrote up the decision, there's nothing contractual they talked about. There was no contractual issues they talked about. You know how that's how you know it was stipulated. That they went in and said, hey, look, here's the contractual things. We want those in there. They didn't even argue that. We want those in there. Even though we voted it down. So you go the 20 minutes fixed office time got rammed through because this dumb fuck at the top. And it continues on. And the goalpost moved from an hour office time to 45 minutes of office time. Again, this was sent to me this week. Again, this is something that we should have addressed back in those, when they talked about the metrics, and we didn't. How many of your business agents addressed the hour office time? How many of them addressed the hour office time? This says now it's 45 minutes. Anybody address the 45 minutes of office time? Or are they just letting us get run over because they're more worried about a podcaster than doing their fucking job? Huh? Here's something. This is from management to the union. From management to the union. Listen to this. This is from management to the union. Official information request. Information request. Now, management's sending us an information request. To NELC steward, got the steward's name. I request that the following documents and or witnesses be made available to us in order to properly identify whether or not a grievance does exist, and if so, their relevancy to the grievance. In addition, I request any and all evidence, including steward notes and witness statements, with regard to this case. Please provide this information as soon as administratively possible. I would write on there, no, and give it back. There's no requirement that I give you anything. And you want permission. I request the following documents and our witnesses be made available to us in order to properly identify whether or not agree. You're asking me to provide a witness? That's what? You can interview anybody you want to, your management. But they're wanting witnesses to be made available to them. God. We work for some dumb fucks, man. Let me tell you. In addition, I request any and all evidence. But they're going to say whether or not a grievance does exist. That's not for you. That's not for you. That's for me. I'm the one who determines if I have a grievance, not management. That's not their determination. You know, when I first became a shop steward, I had a station manager, and he was a good station manager. This guy was good to my carriers, which is all I care about. But I had my very first grievance I take to him, he's like, that's not a grievance. I said, do what? Corey, that's not a grievance. I don't know who you've been talking about. That's not a grievance. I said, hell, I'll file it anyway. We see where it lands. And we won it. But it's not for them to determine if I have a grievance or not. That's from me. I have 14 days to investigate. And if I feel at the end of that investigation I have a grievance, I'm going to file it. If not, I'm not going to file one. But they say, I'll read it again. I request that the following documents and their witnesses be made available to us in order to properly identify whether or not a grievance does exist. Like I said, I would put no on there and send it back. Here's another one that pisses me off. The NELC facilitator, that's us. The NELC facilitator at Step B, training, telling people to resolve a 14-day suspension to a 7-day when the case file is missing the elements of discipline relied upon, no admission and undisputed facts conceding their existence, and no plausible explanation for a parking brake not being set as an admission of guilt and meets management's burden. We're in a bad way. Yes, I'll read that again. NELC facilitator at Step B training telling people to resolve a 14-day suspension to a 7-day, basically when they failed to meet just cause. Do you know why they're doing that? Because the backlog of grievances is so great that they're just getting rid of shit. So I'm going to get stuck with a 7-day when management hasn't proven their burden. That's where we are. So it's a 14-day, just reduce it to a 7-day, even though they don't have in there a letter of warning or a 7-day. That's what he says. No admission and undisputed facts conceding their existence. We raised the contention, hey, there is no 7-day, there is no letter of warning. They went straight to a 14-day. We'll just reduce it to a 7-day. That's because the backlog of grievances is so great that you're seeing shit like this happen. Who is paying for that? For management intentionally sabotaging the grievance procedure. Who's paying for that? The city letter carrier. I've said it over and over again. We are the ones catching the brunt of the union's incompetence and failure to get a hold of this. It's us. So here you have a 14-day and being reduced to a 7-day, no burden met. Let's just keep on going. Talk to the management side of the DRT for my district. I don't want to say what district, as they give info, and definitely said the Postal Service has a manager who is just listening to the podcast being put out. The orders over every telecon to the DRT teams is to impasse every cease and desist and escalated remedy, even if they make sense and the case will be obviously won by the union at arbitration. They are not allowed to do anything but impasse. Said the system is irrevocably fucked. They used to get shit canned if the case is settled or less than 50%. It's currently 14% settled. That's what we're up against. You've had B-team decisions given cease and desist and a monetary award. They're saying, hey, impasse all those. Impasse all those. They're intentionally fucking up the grievance procedure, and we have no answer for it whatsoever. None. No answer. And it leads to this right here. Here's a B-team decision that somebody sent to me. And that's what this leads to when you say that impasse every cease and desist and escalated remedy. Here's where this leads to. Here's a B-team decision somebody sent to me for management refusing to meet at the Formal A. And there's a joint statement case as well. So they have no contention at Formal A. No contention sent up to the DRT. None. Okay? Here's the decision. Management did fail to meet with the union at formal step A of the grievance procedure in this case. Management must comply with the provisions of Article 15 for this issue. Now, I'm going to read that again. Management did fail to meet with the union at formal step A of the grievance procedure in this case. Management must comply with the provisions of Article 15 for this issue. That's what we got. I had no idea. And these things are supposed to be educational. B-team decisions are supposed to be educational. I had no idea that management must comply with the JCAM. I'm so glad that they said that. I did not know that. I just hope and pray. I hope and pray that we get that same benefit. That we get the same benefit when I have discipline come up there. Right? That when we have discipline go up there, they say, Corey must comply with the JCAM. Thank you. Thank you. Will we get that same benefit? Why is it the double standard? There's the double standard because we allow the double standard. We have allowed the double standard. That's the reason there is one. You have management saying, hey, every cease and desist, send it up. Fuck up the process. Any escalated monetary award, send it up. Fuck up the process. And you got dumb fuck business agents calling me out saying, you know, he don't understand taking into consideration they're losing money. Don't give a fuck if they're losing money. It's their fucking problem. It's their fucking problem that they're losing money. I have never seen a union concede every fucking thing because management, the employer, sells them a bill of goods. I have never seen a union buy some shit hook, line, and sinker like this one has. They're losing money. They have no money. Oh, fuck. They're losing money. And you got a podcaster talking about he ain't going to take that into consideration. Fuck. He's a dumbass motherfucker. God. Bless, we're so fucked, man. But here's what happens when you have them say no more cease and desist. Again, we bend to that shit. We cave to it because the system is so irrevocably broken with 40,000 cases pending B that you get this. Management must comply with the provisions of Article 15. God. I had no fucking idea. That is so educational. Thank you for that. That'll set precedent. That'll set a stiff precedent in that installation. A stiff precedent. I'd taken it in. I said, told y'all must comply. Well, fuck, we didn't know that. Yes, you do. You do now. God, what a fucking waste. Another one. My manager is heavily enforcing this 20 minutes of office time. I thought it's for route adjustments and doesn't actually create a new standard. Can someone please send me some language either refuting or proving this? So you have people that don't know that the 20 minutes of fixed office time is for any route adjustment process. Do you know why? Because they've not been educated. The only education they're getting is off of podcasts, which is a crying shame. and off of social media, which is even more of a crying shame. Because you have business agents with their thumb up their fucking ass, not educating people, and wondering why they're going to all lose their fucking job. That's why. You motherfuckers ain't good for shit. God bless. Somebody educate somebody. Fuck, for the union. Somebody get off their fucking ass and educate a city letter carrier. Do that. Fuck. You more worried about a fucking podcaster than your fucking carriers get run over. Your carriers are in disarray on the workroom floor getting pummeled, and you fuckers got your eyes somewhere else. Push yourself away from the fucking dinner table and get out there and fucking raise hell for the city letter carrier. Why don't you do that shit? Again, my manager is heavily enforcing the 20 minutes of office time. 20 minutes of office time? What the fuck is that? 20 minutes of office time. God bless. Here's another thing somebody sent to me. This is crazy shit. Here. Fair and reasonable statement. I intend to make a fair and reasonable evaluation of the workload on the route. In order to do so, you must perform duties and travel the route in precisely the same manner you do throughout the year. I impress upon you the fact that management is just as anxious and desirous, desirous of obtaining an accurate count of mail and inspection of the route as you, so that a fair and equitable evaluation of the workload on my route may be made. M39 231.5. I'll read that again. I intend to make a fair and reasonable evaluation of the workload on the route. And this is all in quotation marks, like somebody's saying this shit. In order to do so, you must perform duties and travel the route in precisely the same manner you do throughout the year. And then it's got carrier's name, examiner's name, the day, date, route, driver's license number, lunch location, and it wants you to sign it. I'm not signing a damn thing. I'm not signing shit. That goes back to M1302. M1302, okay? M1302. There's no requirement that a carrier sign that the subject information was received. That's all you're going to need. I don't have to sign anything, okay? That's M1302, all right? So make sure you get that, put that in there when you have this form come out. Plus, it's a locally generated form. It's not promulgated through the ASM. So you'll do that. There's a good episode on that as well, okay? Here's another thing, and this pissed me off. I always fill out a 3996 anytime I'm going to be over to let management, however, the instructions I was told is to stay out there until all the mail is delivered, but be done in this allotted time, and if the individual cannot get the route in that allotted time. The instructions I received is to stay out there, and it's disapproved time, and they put me on 1017B. Sorry about that. That was kind of oddly worded. But anyway, they put in a 3996, they call back, and they're told to stay out. Now, that's approved. Once you do that, that time is approved, right? And so they're put on a 1017B. So he tells the shop steward, hey, they put me on a 1017B even though they told me to stay out there. Listen to this. The union steward told me there wasn't a grievance because the postmaster said I got paid for the time. Which honestly, they are super dead wrong on that. However, my shop steward believed them. Then the acting 204B explained to me that the reasoning and the memo is from the 1980s and no longer relevant. The acting 204B claimed carriers were not getting paid for back then in the 80s. And now you can still get paid for it, however it's not permitted. I'll be honest, Corey, you know better than anybody how management doesn't know how to tell the truth, and all it's honestly ridiculous that we work in an environment where management lies so much is unbelievable. So here's a guy that turns into 3996, He goes out there, he calls back, and they tell him, hey, go ahead and deliver the mail. That's approving your overtime, okay? They put him on a 1017B. They put him on a 1017B, and he goes to a shop steward. He says, hey, I'd like to file a grievance for this because they put me on a 1017B. And the shop steward says, there is no grievance because they paid you for it. Well, they got to pay me for it because I'm working. So you got to pay me. My issue is they put me on a 1017B, unauthorized overtime log, when you told me to stay out there. It's inherent that that's approved now. And then this 204B says, well, that memo that you're talking about from the 80s is no longer relevant. It's no longer relevant. They would have to show me where there's a memo that came out that supersedes that does away with that memo. Those memos from the 1970s are still just as relevant today. Okay? But that's what we're dealing with. Oh, those memos? Yeah, that's from 1980s. Doesn't apply. Does apply. Absolutely it does. To this day it does. And the shop steward should know better to say that, well, you were paid, and so really there's no grievance. There is a grievance. You put me on a 1017B unauthorized overtime log, which means eventually I can be disciplined if there's enough of those. So I'm going to have it removed, okay? All right, I'm going to give you an investigative interview. All right? Now what you did was you go out there and you got your personal shoes on. They're not union shoes, okay? You got your personal shoes on and you slip and you fall, okay? We got some problem with the tread, okay? You slip and you fall. We got some problem with the tread. You got your personal shoes on, okay? So I'm going to give you an investigative interview. Now, new shop stewards, always remember, we're always going to go to the sub-questions of just cause, okay? Is there a rule? The very first one, is there a rule? If so, was the employer aware of the rule? Was the employee forewarned of the disciplinary consequences for failure to follow the rule? I'll go over that again. It's the very first sub-question of just cause. Is there a rule? Most of the time there is. There's probably a rule for just about everything, okay? Is there a rule? If so, which means it continues on. It doesn't stop there. If so, if there is a rule, was the employee aware of the rule? Okay, so I've got a million rules. Was I aware of it? Now, I'm not talking about you make me aware of it in the investigative interview when you read it. And you say, hey, section 231 or whatever states this. Are you aware of that? Well, I am now because you just read it to me. Okay? We'll always say no. If so, was the employee aware of the rule? It goes on. Was the employee forewarned of the disciplinary consequences for failure to follow the rule? That's probably going to be through a 16-2 discussion where you're going to make me aware of the rule, okay? It is not enough to say, well, everybody knows that rule, or we posted that rule 10 years ago. You may have to prove that the employee should have known of the rule, okay? Most importantly, was a thorough investigation completed? Anytime we're talking about discipline or an investigative interview, was a thorough investigation completed before administering the discipline? Management must. Now, these words are critical, okay? That is a mandate. We talk about it all the time. Management must make an investigation to determine whether the employee committed the offense. Management must, that's a mandate, ensure that its investigation is two things: thorough and objective. Now I want y'all to remember that in all the discipline that we're going to read today, in this investigative interview I'm fixing to give you because you had the wrong shoes on and you failed, this is the employee's day in court privilege. Now that's the most important word in this sub-question of just cause. This. Okay? This is the employee's day in court privilege. Why is that important? Because management will say, hey, you had an investigative interview a year ago about this very same thing. So we told you there's a rule, and were you aware of the rule? We told you all those things. This is the employee's day in court privilege. This, okay? It doesn't say these or those or all of these. It says this is the employee's day in court privilege. That's the one that we're sitting at today. This one, okay? So make sure that if management attempts to say, hey, we've told you that, no, this is my day in court. Because today, what? Employees have the right to know with reasonable detail what the charges are and to be given a reasonable opportunity to defend themselves before the discipline is initiated. Okay? So this is my day in court. This is. And it's my opportunity to defend myself against what you're going to charge me with. That's the reason I say when you issue discipline and there's 15 provisions on there that I violated, you didn't ask me about any of them on my day in court. To me, that's a violation of my due process and a violation of this sub-question of just cause. Because this is my day in court, this is the employee's day in court, and it's my opportunity. I have the right. That's a strong word, right? I have the right to know with reasonable detail what the charges are and to be given a reasonable opportunity to defend myself before the discipline is issued. So, if you have an investigative interview and you cite three things in there that I violated, and you add about 6 more on the discipline, that's a violation of that. Wouldn't you say? Reasonable opportunity to defend themselves before the discipline is issued. Hell, after the discipline is issued, you can't cite 6 more things on me. I wasn't given an opportunity to defend myself against that. Okay? So hopefully I didn't muddle that up for you. But remember those 2 while we're going over this investigative interview, because you fail. Okay? So here we go. This is an investigative interview that could lead to the disciplinary actions up to and including removal from the Postal Service. As per the Employee Labor Relations Manual 6653, you're required to cooperate in any postal investigation. This is your opportunity to explain your actions and give any relevant information regarding the issue at hand. Do you understand? Okay. How long have you been employed at the USPS? Are you aware that you're required to follow postal management instructions? Are you aware that you're required to work in a safe manner? Are you aware that you're required to report accidents to management as soon as they happen? On December 1st of 2025, you reported having a slip, trip, and fall accident at this address. Can you please explain what happened? What time did this accident occur? Can you please explain why a package with this number was delivered by you at this address at 11:13 a.m. after you had been to the address of the accident? Are you aware that you are required to have proper footwear while delivering mail? That is enclosed leather or a substantial synthetic material. Canvas or nylon is not acceptable. Please explain why you did not have on the approved postal footwear and were wearing mesh Merrill brand shoes. Management has never received any documentation for your footwear. Do you have any documentation to provide management? Postal policy states you must submit a written request to the manager of Human Resources for approval of a medical exemption for shoes that are an exemption to the USPS shoe policy, and you must provide documentation. Have you ever submitted this to the Human Resources? Can you please explain why the Merrill brand shoes you were wearing had worn tread on the bottom? Are you aware that 883 of the EL 814 states do not wear shoes with soles that are very thin, either by design or from excessive wear? Now, what are you going to say right there? What's your answer? Are you aware that 8-8-3 of the EL 814 states, I'm not aware of the EL 814. I damn sure ain't going to know what anything in it states. But you will have those that say yes. You will have them say yes. I'm going to say never saw the EL814, never heard of it. Have no idea what that is. EL814. I guarantee you, management, when you go back in the informal A meeting and you say, hey, what is 8-8-3 of the EL814? What does that talk about? They'll have no idea. Do you think it's safe to wear shoes with worn out tread and no cleats in the ice and snowstorm? On 12/1, management gave a safety stand-up in the morning about wearing proper PPE cleats in the ice and snowy weather. Can you please explain why you failed to wear your cleats? Can you please explain why you're wearing the USPS City Carrier summer uniform shorts during a snowstorm with temperatures below freezing on 12/1? What's that got to do with anything? They're fishing now. Are you aware the ELM 934 states certain uniform classifications must be worn during seasonal changes as determined by the head of the installation? Are you aware of the ELM 934? No, I'm not. I have no idea what it states. None. Are you aware that hyperthermia can set in with 10 to 20 minutes during cold weather if you're not wearing proper clothing? I don't know when hyperthermia sets in. No idea. Do you have anything else to add? Okay, so I was asked about ELM 934 and EL814. Anything other than that on the discipline, I'm going to talk about was the thorough investigation completed. Anything other than the EL814 and ELM 934, I'm going to raise a procedural due process argument. I'm going to say that management failed to meet just cause because the only things asked of me in the investigative interview were those two things. All right, we're going to go over a couple of disciplines, all right, because I said that I would, and then we'll be done with it. You always look at dates, okay? You always look at dates, times, places. Here's a letter of warning. Date, December 3rd of 2025. You're being issued this letter of warning for the following reasons. Charge, improper conduct. So we got this thing as December 3rd, 2025. The charge is improper conduct. On September 12th, okay, now we got a problem, okay? So September 12th, and the discipline is December 3rd. I think that's 82 days, okay? So when we go back to the sub-questions of just cause, was the disciplinary action taken in a timely manner? Disciplinary actions should be taken as promptly as possible after the offense has been committed. Okay? After the offense has been committed. So the offense was September 12th. So 82 days later, I've got a letter of warning. That's my first contention. I don't care what I've done. I don't care what the rest of it says. After I see that kind of disparity, and September 12th, 82 days later, I get a letter of warning, my first contention. That's my first contention. When you're given instructions not to case the coverage, you responded using profanity saying, this is fucking bullshit. That's stupid. And management doesn't know what the hell they are doing. Your failure to follow instructions and disrupting the workroom floor with your outbursts is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. A fact-finding was conducted on October 28th. So September 12th was the infraction. October 28th, you bring me in for an investigative interview. And the reason being, I later found out, was that they filed a joint statement case on this manager and it came back in their favor. And so this is for retaliation. So I said, put that in there as well. Put that in your contentions as well and put the settlement in there. October 28th, with your union steward in attendance, you confirmed you understand the instructions that you are to follow, instructions of your supervisor. When asked if you were given instructions on September 12th not to case the coverage that was backwards in order, you responded, I was given instructions to case in a partial coverage that was backwards, which according to the contract I'm allowed to. When asked, your response to the supervisor was, This is fucking bullshit. That's stupid. Why do I have to do this when it would take longer? Correct, you responded. Yes. When asked, is it true, you said, management doesn't know what the hell they are doing. The instruction is stupid. You responded, no. I said, those were incompetent orders from management, and don't worry, I'll follow your stupid, incompetent orders that are only going to slow me down, but when it takes me longer, I don't want to hear about it. So here's a set of occupants that's going backwards on the route, and they want them not to stick them. But hey, it's management. So here's your charge, Employee and Labor Relations Manual M66513, Discharge of Duties. Employees are expected to discharge their assigned duties conscientiously and effectively. And 66515, obedience to orders. Okay? So there's your charge. Nothing in there about making outbursts on the workroom floor. There's no contractual language in there talking about that. And so I'm going to raise that as an issue. You got discharge of duties, which doesn't apply. And you've got obedience to orders, which may apply. Okay? So I'm going to say that management can only charge me with failure to follow instructions. But it doesn't matter because your discipline is 82 days late. Okay? Here's the last one. This one's going to piss you off. This is going to piss you off right here. It pissed me off. And it was recent. November 24th of 2025. Improper conduct. This lady is a full-time carrier assigned to this station. On November 12th, 2025, this carrier failed to follow instructions. I announced break time to all carriers around 8:30. Before this date, I had instructed this carrier that she was not to make any announcements or statements on the workroom floor without a supervisor or manager's approval. On Saturday, November 15th, you participated in an investigative interview with your union representative, and you had the opportunity to respond to your actions. When asked if you were present on the workroom floor on November 12th around 8:30 a.m., when I called break, you replied, I was. When asked if you made any verbal statements at the time, you said, I did. I thank the veterans. So management yells out break. They say it twice now. They yell out break. While she's going to break, she says, I thank the veterans for their service. Thank you to the brothers and sisters who fought for this country. When asked was your voice was raised during those comments, you said no. When asked if you received approval from a supervisor to address the carriers on the workroom floor, you said, being that break time was called, I was on my own personal time. I didn't think I needed to ask permission to say thank you to the veterans. Also, the scanner stated that we should thank veterans today. So she says the scanner said we should thank veterans. When asked if anyone approached you about your tone or conduct at that time, you said no. When asked about your response when you saw this person after making those comments, you said, this individual approached me shaking her head and waving her finger. She said, we don't do that. I asked, what? Thank veterans? She shook her hand with a gesture signaling no. I said, well, write me up. She said, I will do that. So we'll go back to the sub-question of just cause. I will do that. I will write you up. Okay? So this is happening on the floor. You yell out break. Management does. You yell out break. I'm going on break and I said, hey, veterans, thank y'all for your service and what you've done for us. You're going to come running up to me saying, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. What? Thank veterans? I'm on break. We don't do that. Well, write me up. I will write you up. Was a thorough investigation completed? It has to be two things. What does it have to be? Thorough and objective. It can no longer be objective. If you've told me before the investigative interview that you're going to write me up, the investigative interview is nothing more than a charade. It was something you had to do to get to the discipline that you already told me you was going to give me. So that's a violation of that sub-question of just cause. Was a thorough investigation completed? It was no longer objective. It doesn't matter how thorough it is now. It can be as thorough as any investigation you've ever done. It doesn't matter. The investigation was not objective because you told me already you were going to give me discipline. All right, and we're going to win it based off of that alone. And they put it in the damn letter of warning. When asked if you told the manager, it's very light print, so I can't see shit. You know how blind I am. That you've been previously instructed in June 2025 by this manager and myself not to engage in yelling or disruptive behavior on the workroom floor, you replied, no. Y'all not say anything about yelling on the workroom floor. You said that I need to get permission to speak on the workroom floor. When asked if this individual instructed you to go through a supervisor if you wanted to address the carriers on the workroom floor, you responded, no. I mean, during the stand-up talk, yes. She did not say anything about not on the break. When asked why you disregarded those instructions, you said, I did not. When asked if you understand that continued disruptive conduct or failure to follow supervisor instructions may lead to corrective or disciplinary measures, you said, if it violates the contract, yes, I can see. Your explanations were noted, however, it remains unacceptable. Your actions, as described, are in violation of the following sections of the Employee and Labor Relations Manual. Employer and Labor Relations Manual, 665, Postal Service Standards of Conduct, 665.1, General Expectations, 665.11, Loyalty. Employees are expected to be loyal to the United States government and uphold the policies and regulations of the Postal Service. 665.13, Discharge of Duties. Employees are expected to discharge their assigned duties conscientiously and effectively. 665.15, Obedience to orders. Employees must obey the instructions of their supervisors. Handbook M41, 112.21, obey the instructions of your manager. 112.25, be prompt, courteous, and obliging in the performance of duties. Attend quietly and diligently to work and refrain from loud talking and the use of profane language. And then it's got the discipline, okay? I mean, it's got the signature. So we're going to attack each one of these contractual provisions, right? Do they even apply? When you talk about loyalty, 66511, loyalty. Employees are expected to be loyal to the United States government and uphold the policies and regulations of the Postal Service. We're always going to attack those things, okay? Because here's what happens. You have overzealous labor. They write these disciplines. They're going to put shit in there trying to look big, trying to look like they know shit. So that when you get it, they're like, oh, damn, 665.11 loyalty, that's impressive. The problem is, probably weren't asked about it in the II, and it doesn't apply. 665.11 loyalty. I've got a case for you. And it's a case that I did. It's in front of arbitrator Sims. It's C36248. And the reason I'm doing this is because the person sent it to me, and I told him I was going to go over it tonight. So, C36248. 36248. And I raised that contention. When we were talking about it, it was a new argument by me, but management didn't address it when I was talking about the charge. And here's what he says. Lastly, when the agency is considering whether to charge an employee for some sort of misconduct, as in this case here, it is free to charge what it will, but it must prove what it charges. I'll read that again. Lastly, when the agency is considering whether to charge an employee for some sort of misconduct, as is the case here, it is free to charge what it will, but then it must prove what it charges. The first and second questions in the just cause test are, is there a rule, and is the rule reasonable? And then he goes on. Talks about 665.11, loyalty. It's the exact same thing that's on here, right? And this is what he says. In my considered opinion, the agency did not demonstrate that the agreement had been disloyal to the U.S. government, ELM 66511, nor that he failed to discharge his assigned duties, ELM 66513. Both of those are on here, right? There was also no evidence or testimony that the agreement failed to obey the instructions of a supervisor. And during the II, the agreement was forthcoming with the truth and admitted his wrongdoing as cooperative, ELM 6653. The Postal Service could have very well drafted a notice of removal using far less overreach that could have easily been demonstrated and proven, but it did not. In my considered opinion, the precision used when crafting a removal document is as important as ensuring an affirmative response to each of the just cause questions. The agency must prove what it charges. Okay? So again, he's talking about how overzealous they were. The Postal Service could have very well drafted a notice of removal using far less overreach that could have easily been demonstrated and proven. Same thing here. But this is what they always do. They always want to add 6 or 7 more things on a charge notice. Okay? That's what you have to attack. That's what you have to go over. Because labor will always do that. They always want to look big. They're always going to add shit to that removal notice or whatever the discipline is, just like they did here. 665.11. He addresses it. So again, that case number is 36248. 36248. So here you have a young lady. They call break. I imagine they called it out loud. Put it on the notice. She's going to break and she said, "Hey, veterans, thank y'all so much for what you've done. Thank you for your service." While she's going on break, they give her a letter of warning. When I say you don't hate them enough, you don't hate these motherfuckers enough. They should have clapped for the lady for saying that. Thank you, veterans, for what you do for us. Gets a letter of warning. So there's your episode. Sorry that was so choppy, but anytime I'm reading this one off my phone and I'm blind as hell, it comes out a little choppy, all right? Because I can't hardly see the shit. But anyway, there's you some discipline, some other things. Hell, that's an hour and 20 minutes. I didn't think it'd be 30 minutes long, but you know how I get. I'm long-winded. But got my man JB coming on Sunday. Can't wait. Y'all going to love that one. That's going to be a great episode. Make sure you have pen and paper on that because he's going to do a fantastic job. Talk about some reports you're going to ask for. Great stuff. Great stuff, right? Hey, listen. The only thing I care about is light blue. That's it. That's all this education is for. A lot of these same punk-ass business agents that are talking about me were also using templates based off of this podcast. And they were putting templates out around their region based off of things that I talked about on the podcast. And so I don't give a fuck about them, all right? And so the only thing I concern myself with are those that dress like me in light blue, all right? Those that sit behind a desk can kiss all this ass. We're going to do this thing next year, light blue. We're going to do this thing next year, all right? And so I love you with everything in me. I love you, light blue. And I'm going to fight my ass off for you, okay? Believe that. Believe that. So you got JB next Sunday, or this Sunday. We'll not have one the next week, all right? Y'all please be safe out there. It's cold, it's snowy, it's inclement, and it's fucking, we're out there all damn night. And so take care of yourselves. Protect yourselves, all right? And so I love you, and I'll talk to y'all Sunday.